We now have Stefano Picone.
Great. So just by a show of hands here, who's familiar with the concept of big data as it relates to businesses? Who here? All right, we got a couple people. So for those who aren't familiar with the concept, sort of it is what it sounds like. Organizations today, they're producing massive amounts of data very fast in all sorts of different forms. So as difficult it is for organizations to sort of store this information, analyze it, search it, it's even more difficult for them to get anything meaningful out of it. So Sommerlink was founded really with the mandate of helping organizations leverage big data technology. And as part of this, we assembled a multidisciplinary team. I'm not sure whether we're rock stars. I guess we'll figure that out. Our chair has 30 years of experience in enterprise IT. Our CEO, Andrew Ford, is down there. He's an engineer. Our chief software architect is also, he's an engineer, and then there's myself. So we sort of had a mandate. We also sort of have a team. The next thing we need to figure out was sort of the product of what we were going to start with. So what we did, the first thing we did, we just went out and we started talking to people. We had lots of coffee chats, lots of conversations. And we tried to talk to people in knowledge-intensive businesses. And so the people that we ended up talking most to were actually lawyers. And really what we try to do is try to get an understanding of what their pain points are, what they're dealing with. So just to give you an overview of sort of the Canadian legal system, we operate in a common law system based on precedent and jurisdiction. So for a lawyer in Canada, if they're trying to understand precedent jurisdiction, what they do is they have sort of a combination of internal databases and external resources that they can use. Most commonly, Quick Law, Westlaw, Canley. Quick Law and Westlaw, they're provided by Thomson Reuters and LexisNexis, so they're privately available, or private. Canley is publicly available. Now the thing about these things is you can search them by keyword, by text, but at least in our opinion, they don't give you anything particularly intelligent. And there have been a lot of advances in sort of big data technology, particularly around what's called natural language processing, which allows you to take a large, subset of just, case files, things like that, anything written in, normal language, and sort of synthesize it, look at it, analyze it. So what we've come up with is an application called Automata Law, which is really what's called a computational search engine for lawyers. What that means is it allows for natural language queries. So rather than looking at just words, you're actually going to ask it questions. What it does when you ask it a question, it generates a visual statistical dashboard. So it sort of takes that question, takes all the cases, and sort of applies that question to the cases. And also from this, it allows lawyers to drill down and sort of access what are called case digests to better sort of understand the relationship between principles and sort of reasoning in judgment. So to give you an example, this is actually one that was proposed to us by a lawyer, was, for example, when does parliamentary privilege apply to a legislative official? Just as an example, right? So you're just doing that kind of search. This is our sort of proposed user interface. Sorry to violate Jad's rule. This is like way too much text, but this is an example of what it looks like. Maybe only the lawyers here are going to appreciate what this is.
But that's your target market.
What's that?
That's your target market.
Absolutely. So this is something obviously Quick Law, Westlaw are not going to give you. So to give you an example on the left, we have taken all the cases and we have basically statistically stratified them based on things like the ruling, frequently used legislation, frequently cited cases, principles, frequency. We can also do judges, all sorts of things, jurisdiction, etc. And then what it allows you to do is for example, in this case, we selected a frequently cited case. It allows you to pull up a case digest. So really quickly, basically get an understanding of the facts that were involved, the principles, the legal principles, and also the reasoning. In this case, it's a fairly well-known case, the New Brunswick broadcasting test, so this was sort of why it was proposed to us. The real indication for this, when we believe the application, sort of twofold. Firstly, for large law firms, it's their associates that do the majority of the searching and then sort of have to show the results to the partners. And also for sort of sole proprietorships or smaller firms where their partners do spend a lot of time searching because they do the preliminary searching because they don't have associates. So that's sort of where we see the majority of our users. So where we are, where it's our ask, where we are today, really we're a little bit different. We're using a sort of an iterative software and company approach. We intend to finance via revenue. We intend to really sort of develop the product and continue to develop both the product and the company through our customers. To date, we have an index of commonly used case sources. So we don't have sort of the nitty-gritty, but we do have a large number of things. We're sort of working on our secondary algorithms. We got our first ones going. But most importantly, what we're working on right now, we have an April alpha launch that we're planning. We're starting to execute a memorandum of understandings with potential customers. We actually got our first MOU signed on Tuesday with a boutique law firm here in Toronto. There's a couple other sole practitioners we're talking to, and also one of our first actual interests came from a 50-person employment law firm here in Toronto. So still a little small, but really our ask here today, and we came here knowing that there would be lawyers in the audience, was we're hoping to get customers, because we know that we're going to build this thing based on the feedback that we get from our customers. So that is the presentation. Thank you. And actually, I would invite for the question period Andrew to come up here in case anybody has any technical questions. So the lawyers.
Yeah, I have. Looks
Absolutely.
really interesting.
Okay.
And I think that one slide that good old Jab would typically not like
Yeah.
was compelling because it says, I can see how an associate will go, oh, thank God, there's that
absolutely.
many. Now, a couple of the issues are you can't have some of the reported, you got to have all the reported cases so that if somebody doesn't have the risk.
Sure.
So I mean, most lawyers will always, will have someone go make sure that all those cases have not been judicially considered further, that there's no risk of, there's been a more modern interpretation of the case or response to the case. But you can't have some of the cases, you got to have all the cases. So that database is really key, and I'm curious how it's all available, but I think it's just,
absolutely. Yeah, we really
is that
see
a cost issue more than,
no, we really see this, as an adjunct. We do not see this as sort of like we're going to come in and we're going to totally displace everybody else. We see this, and we sort of, again, with the iterative model, we're going to start with a certain cases. Maybe it's just in one practice area, and we sort of build from that. Yeah. So, I don't know if
now, have you thought about a reseller model? Because where we tend to look to are the big providers, the Thomson Reuters of the world.
Absolutely.
That's where, they're reliable. You're never going to get criticized. If you're the librarian or the head of research in a big firm, you're never going to get criticized for buying sort of the IBM type source of. But this is a really great product, and people will use it not instead of, but beside, which is great. Which is good. But you got to show. So if that's how most of the big firms are going to buy it, presumably that's where the money will be, because it's going to be, is it by seats that are going to do it? How are you going to?
It'll be a licensing arrangement with software, just like any sort of.
Right. So sole practitioners, that's a long slog, right? One, they're cheap. Two, they're not cheap, but they have fun. Big firms have more money watching around for this sort of thing. They want to make their associates as efficient as possible. So that's the guy you got to sell to. But if you go in and sell beside someone like a Thomson Reuters, it'll be a lot easier for you.
Okay.
But it's a great looking product.
Okay, great, thank you.
And very good presentation.
Thank you very much.
Excellent presentation.
I feel legit in a sense because of the ask. The ask was kind of like a switch and bait. Like you thought this was an interesting opportunity to invest in. But assuming, are you presenting on Saturday?
No, we're not.
Oh, okay. So that's one thing. I mean, definitely change the ask slide.
Okay.
But yes, I mean, if this was a sales pitch incognito, well done. But generally speaking, like in this type of I think presentation, it is good to consider if you were going to go build this business. It becomes an investor deck. This was kind of like an investor/sales deck that you put together. With respect to the big data play, that looked very interesting. I would be interested to know, and I guess lawyers look at this, but if you pitch to investors, how much money they do spend, like how many hours and whatever it costs kind of go into generating these reports and doing all the research, and do you cut that time by 90% or whatever?
The honest answer is twofold. So first of all, I'll talk about that. The honest answer, we don't know yet. What we do know is it is, in some cases, extremely expensive for lawyers to search. So Quick Law and Westlaw are pay-per-click, anywhere between, depending on what you're accessing, between $400 and $400. And they do make more of their money sort of on the intelligence reports, but it is sort of expensive. Now, to answer your finance question, I mean, the thing is that when you do a raise, you're beholden to those investors for an exit. And the thing is that we're not exactly sure what it is we do and we don't have right now, and we're not exactly sure how it's going to evolve. So I think that when you pitch to an investor, you're going to say, okay, we intend to exit within a certain period of time. And the way we view big data right now is sort of, at least natural language processing, it's the Wild West. We're not exactly sure where it's going to go. So, yeah.
Just real quick, and you don't need to answer these questions, but I felt gypped by the big data comment.
Okay.
Because and then at the end, I'm from the medical field, and the same kind of issues of completeness that Craig was talking about. Sure. You actually have to demonstrate breadth and depth feasibility when you've touched one millionth of the market of the data rather, and the data is this big. I would want to see some actual analytical work or proof that you can in fact deal with the volume of cases. So I would say drop the big data thing entirely. Say this is a problem for lawyers. You've got some stuff for lawyers. You're going to really solve the problem for lawyers. And then when you talk to investors, you say, then we build a platform. Then we go after other applications. Because what it looks like right now, is you've got some algorithms that do some really great formatting. You've tested it on 1/1,000,000th of the data and shown that the pictures are really pretty. And I have absolutely zero confidence that this can actually do what you say it's going to do. It's a service, it's a bunch of programmers together. That's what my impression is, the bunch of programmers together have got some really cool algorithms.
Can I speak to that really quickly? Really quick, just a question. At what point, so there's maybe 11 million plus case files in Canada. So at what point can we say, we are at a point where we can demonstrate depth?
So we're going to have to stop this right now.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
sure.
Okay.
Just have one basic comment. It's a truism, and this applies to everybody making a presentation, that your audience members decide subconsciously within 5 seconds if they're going to listen to you or not, really listen to you.
Okay.
Your first sentence has to really grab the interest of the listener. It's very important. So the sort of soft lead in doesn't work. All that happens is the mind subconsciously shut off, people are looking at you, but they're not really listening. So, and that, the slide that, not to pile on Jed, but the slide that Jed didn't like.
Never said that.
That should be your opening slide if you're addressing an audience of lawyers.
Okay.
For the record,
Yeah.
I love that slide. Because, no, and I'll tell you why.
Yeah.
Because it was well applied to your target market.
Okay.
My issue is with when people expect me to read it.
Okay.
Right, that's it. For the record, it was well used.
And some other comments, Dad?
Some other comments? I mean, listen, you weren't really, I don't know how serious you are if you were in front of an investor group, but if you're in front of an investor group, my first question is scalability, right? And I think it was already discussed. But if you can show me that you can scale, but more importantly, you're not just looking, if you can find a way to get all this case data into your database, and more importantly, moving outside of Canada, that's when I'll think about these guys might be worthy, they've got something cool. The second thing is how do you protect this, right? Because the moment that algorithm is out, what's going to stop Google from going and scanning all those case files and saying, hey, we trumped you guys?
Absolutely. Yeah.
But I'm not sure if you're interested in that feedback given your ask, but those are the 2 things I would have thought of.
Great.
And you may want to consider finding a great strategic partner in a big brand name, strong, well-recognized litigation firm.
Okay.
Hint,
And
hint.
because if they love it, then it just gives it cred. And,
Okay, great.
they just are endorsed by sort
Right.
of thing.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Thank you, guys.
Oh, one more.
More.
Well, the entire presentation focused on automata law, but all slides had Sommerlink as the company.
Yeah.
So the connection was not made. It was not clear whether Sommerlink has other things which it is doing other than this, or this is the only thing. And if this is the only thing you're currently working, drop Sommerlink and focus on automata law.
Great. Thank you very much.